Hi, I'm Charlie. Today on our Georgia suburban homestead we're trying to build soil, mainly out of wood chips, but we also have a little bit of chicken manure and some compost.
We're in last of January 2022. The sun's come out and so have the bees because it's above 55 degrees. And here's a wood pile that I am moving to the back of the yard, and I've got bees coming to collect from it. Look, there are just about 50 bees flying back and forth looking for stuff. You might wonder, well, what are they collecting? Well, they're going to collect a little bit of fungus, and they're going to collect a little bit of fluids out of the pine, and they will use that for sealing up their hive if they've got any little holes in their hive. That's how they winter-proof their hive.
Look at the size of this load of chips. Do you know what kind of wood they are, Charlie? Yeah. Smells like some cedar.
Yeah, I think the cedar too, about right there, and then there's some pine.
Cedar and pine, okay. A good bug deterrents anyway.
Yeah.
Think we should put some in the chicken house?
So, I think this was a private thing.
Every spring we get a load of wood chips from the tree service people. They'll come dump them on your yard and not charge you. And this year we really didn't have to ask. It was a group of tree people who had come taken a group of tree people who had come to take a tour of our gardens last year remembered us and did a dump truck load, wasn't it, Charlie?
Yeah.
So Charlie is now moving them to the backyard from the mound in front. He does it a wheelbarrow at a time. And that's how he gets his Arnold Schwarzenegger chest muscles.
It's not a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
Excuse me.
Here we are looking over the winter landscape back here. The hugelkultur beds. There's a lot of the shavings are going to go in the hallway. This is last fall's leaves and shavings. Chicken house. Okay, Charlie. Tell us about why you put yourself through this.
Well, we bought this land and it was just hard red clay, Georgia clay. So, to build some good soil, I've put these chips down. You can get them for free. They just cost you a little work. And put them down, put some fertilizer in there, and they will start breaking down. And okay, there's a old red clay there, so I've built a couple of inches of dirt here.
So I see the red clay at the bottom of that hole. You've got a good, what, 3 inches, 4 inches of soil?
I'd say 2, maybe 2.5.
Oh, you know, women in measurements.
Hey, well, that's better than the men's way of going.
Yeah.
Making it seem bigger. Anyway, 2.5 inches isn't a great amount of root depth, but it's better than 0 because the roots can't get through that red clay. And so in spring, how this dirt has dropped down a bit, I'll be moving all this into there.
Yeah, he'll shovel the hallways into the raised beds, and we also have a compost bin over here we need to come in and rake out. The stuff that hasn't decomposed, we rake it to the side, and then underneath that, if you want to show what we've got going here for soil, it's
and a little code for it right now.
Look at this nice soil.
This is better dirt. Right now the worms have all dove, whatever, moved downwards in the dirt, so we're not getting any up. But in spring, they'll move on up to toward the surface and start converting a lot of this leftover into vermicompost. I tend to vermicompost instead of regular compost because it's just keeping up with enough brown and greens.
Could you tell us the difference between vermicomposting and straight composting?
Well, straight composting, you mix browns with greens, and bacteria and fungi will break it down. Vermicomposting, the worms eat it and poop out the worm casings, and it's slower than the other. Like I say, can't keep up with enough browns and greens to run a regular compost pile.
Because we have something on the farm that eats everything.
Yes.
I thought farm at homestead, it's a farm, it's a mini postage stamp farm, which is what a homestead
can
is.
be fed to the chickens, and they're composted themselves, So the things the chickens want to eat, a lot of the worms will eat most of that, especially when some fungi get into it and convert it into fungi. They're basically eating the fungi instead of whatever it was that the chickens wouldn't eat.
The fungi's eating the fungi?
Well, that's what the fungi is, what's breaking this down. They say, well, if you put wood chips on your soil, it's going to suck up all your nitrogen. Well, that's not really quite true. The wood chips don't suck up the nitrogen. The fungi that are eating the wood chips suck up the nitrogen. Well, about somewhere over 60% of all plants have a symbiotic relationship with some fungi in their roots. And the fungi acts like an extension of the roots much farther than the roots can penetrate themselves. And they will exchange basic nutrients, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, etc., to the plant for sugars out of the plant. And in fact, growing your soil, like I'm trying to do here, normally includes having, various plants, cover crops during the winter. I don't have a lot of cover crop right now because, well...
Someone let the chickens out.
Well, that too. They do like the Austrian peas and so on. But you have to have a certain amount of nitrogen to begin with for your legumes to have the proteins and so on to create the nodules for converting air into nitrogen products. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing with your nitrogen. If you're going to put down a lot of wood chips like I do, you really need to add nitrogen. Not, you know, and once you get the nitrogen and the other things up to the point that it will support your cover crop, then maintain a cover crop. The only problem is I'm still trying to create enough dirt to support the cover crop itself. So I haven't quite gotten there yet.
But your plants thrive when we lift it into the
Oh,
garden.
yeah. Once you put it into the planting beds, it's deep enough that those plants will thrive. But, you know, that much dirt isn't quite enough for even most of the cover crops.
So how much soil do you think you create in a year with 2 to 3 loads of this? Yeah.
Well, 2 truckloads of wood chips probably gives me equivalent to most of a truckload of dirt or soil. It'll go down by about half. The fungi is going to digest as much of it as possible, and wood is made of 2 chemicals, lignin and cellulose. They are both polymers of glucose, and the fungi break the cellulose and the glucose back down, or excuse me, cellulose and lignin back down to glucose, and that's how they get their energy. But they use that energy for sucking up the nitrogen and other nutrients that they need to carry on their life processes. And like I say, they will exchange that with plants for the glucose that the plants make from sunlight. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship that you're trying to get started. And with that red clay, there was just not anything the plant roots could get through. And since there were no plant roots in there, the fungi died out too because they had nothing to eat. So I'm trying to rebuild the whole ecosystem. Okay, folks, I got a lot of chips to move and daylight's wasting. Y'all have a good day. See you later.